All right, Steeler fans, it is time for the second half of the Wednesday podcast, and that means it's time for the mailbag segment where I answer all your questions. If you're listening or watching this, because I do put this segment out on our YouTube channel, and you're like, how do I get my question answered? What do I have to do? Simple. Every Tuesday morning, I put out the tweet, and I just say, look, got questions firing my way, and I answer them live on the show. So let's get started with Believers. He asked first, the Ride or Die Crew poll of the week. He said, grade the Steelers in free agency so far, even with an incomplete at quarterback. So with an incomplete quarterback, I did this for SteelCurtainNetwork.com, the website. Go check it out. I did my report card. After week 1 of free agency, I gave the Steelers a B-. I gave them a B-. I think that they could be doing some more to help bolster position groups like the offensive line, but I do like the signings they've made, especially in the secondary. It hasn't been as bad as some people are making it out to be, so I'm going to go with the B-. Believers also asked, if I missed the cutoff, I don't mind, but would you be okay with keeping Mason as the starter and taking about $20 million of this year's cap and put it to TJ's guaranteed money on a new deal? If the Steelers want to go down that road and give TJ Watt $20 million in guaranteed money, it's not going to have to come all from this year. They're going to be able to spread that money out over the duration of the contract. So let's just say the Steelers do a 3-year extension for Mason Rudolph. An extension. He's on the final year of his contract. So he still gets the money this year, and then he gets 3 more years added on top of that. If they want to do guaranteed money, because that's what Myles Garrett's getting, it's what Max Crosby's getting, it's probably what Trey Hendrickson's going to get when he gets his deal, then you got to plan accordingly, and they will know how to spread that money out throughout the years, so it's not all coming at once. But I would be fine with Mason as the starter this year. But what are you going to do with the rest of the money? Are you going to roll it over? If you save that money for a quarterback, if you don't go with that quarterback, are you just going to roll that money over? That's possible. You can do that. If the Steelers end up having $20 million in cap space, you typically save about 10 for draft picks, injuries, etc. That other 10 million can roll over and you have extra money next year. That is a possibility. I don't know. All right, let's go to Jerry Cherry, the Jerry Cherry Band. Y'all hear the music that's coming in and out of the breaks and at the beginning and end of the show. That's the Jerry Cherry Band. You can check him out actually on Spotify. Go to Spotify, search the Jerry Cherry Band, and you'll find him. Also on YouTube, does great guitar tutorials. All right, Jerry says, do you think it's worth trying to get Shedeur Sanders? You also got to get a bonus. Prime, not a bad football person to have in your back pocket. So, Jerry, I think that if you're pointing to the Steelers getting Shedeur Sanders, you would be in the minority. But at the same time, I'm not just going to push this aside. If Shedeur Sanders gets to 21, I think the Steelers do have to seriously consider what they have in front of them. I don't think that Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, is going to be any type of addition or bonus, in my opinion. I think he's going to have his own work to do. Both, he's doing a lot of TV stuff now. He's obviously at the University of Colorado in recruiting. But Shedeur Sanders is an intriguing prospect. I would pass personally. I don't think he's going to be available 21 anyways. But that's my answer to that question. All right, let's go to Jeff Coons, our buddy up north. He said, greetings from Not Mad Canada. Forgive the ill-informed question, but are compensatory picks tradable? Omar seems to be quietly stockpiling these picks for the 2026 draft. I assume they can be bundled to potentially move up for a premium prospect. And then he continues, I believe I read somewhere that they can't be traded, but I also don't want to believe everything I read unless it comes from the Ride or Die Crew. So here's the thing. They used to, this is probably about 5 years ago, not be tradable. You used to get a comp pick. You can trade your original pick, but you can't trade the comp pick. That has changed. You can trade comp picks now. And that is when, and maybe it was longer than 5 years ago, don't quote me on that, but that is when you had a situation where now teams like the Ravens, who always gather a lot of comp picks, they're seeing this as, wow, we can move these picks around. We can fill the gaps if we make a trade. For instance, when you look at the Steelers and they have a full allotment of picks in 2026, if they get 4 comp picks in some part of that draft, they can easily say, we want to move into the top 10. Maybe close to the top 5. There's a quarterback we covet. We'll trade you our first-round pick. We'll send you a 3rd-round comp pick, a 4th-round comp pick, and a 6th-round comp pick, all to move up. Some team might take that. That's a lot of, or they say, we'll trade you our 1st-round pick, our 2nd-round pick, our 4th-round comp pick, and our 6th-round, whatever. They can do that. It gives them more bullets in their ammunition to move up. So this then started a conversation in the comments of the tweet. Believer said, if they aren't tradable, we can just keep that 4th rounder and trade our original, which is true. You can always trade the original pick. He then says, I have a question for you both. He's talking to Jeff Coons and me, both Jeffs. Knowing we have all those comp picks next year, would you consider using some of next year's draft capital to move up in this year's first? Maybe to recoup that second rounder we can give up for DK, or would you prefer to stockpile it all for a quarterback next year? I think if you really like one of those defensive tackles that may go early, you could package a pick or two and move up a few spots. That is an interesting thought, and that's a lot of forward thinking, and I really have to wrap my head around that. You aren't guaranteed those comp picks right away. And as Dave Schofield so eloquently put on SteelCurtainNetwork.com, there is a risk involved with depending on those picks to be what you think. A lot of it depends not just on contract, it depends on playing time and things of that nature. So go check out those articles at SteelCurtainNetwork.com. There's a two-parter that Dave wrote, and it helps explain some of that stuff. Plain and simple, where Maddie says, howdy from Atlanta. Jeff, 2 questions. I'm buying into this comp pick to move up for the quarterback next year, 100%. That theory. To me, it doesn't really matter who the quarterback is this year. But at this point, I hope it's not Rodgers. Do you think they're concerned about winning now because of the vets, TJ, Cam, and Minka, and focus too heavily on that? Is that what they're in the quarterback spot they're in now? Yeah, it's a great question. I think that the Steelers do want to always try and put the best team out there that they can. And they clearly think that Rodgers is going to be an upgrade over Mason Rudolph or Skylar Thompson. So they're going to do whatever they can, and they're going to wait as long as they can until they get that answer. But at the same time, I think that they do have to think about those veterans and what are they doing and how are they maneuvering the cap and how are they spending their money. It's interesting. I did hear Cam Hayward on his podcast. I saw a clip on Twitter where he said that, he's sick of recruiting. People either want to be in Pittsburgh or they don't. And that's kind of his take. I'm with him 100%. Maddie also says, been wanting to start podcasting for 2 years now, finally ready to push forward and go for it this year before the season starts. Can you offer advice on where to begin, the first steps to take? Thanks, and God bless. All right, so Maddie, that's a great question. You want to start a podcast, what do you do? First and foremost, you have to try and figure out the quality of your products. You want to have a decent microphone. There are some that can be had for not a ton of money. You can hit me up on Twitter. I'll help you out, help you find those. You got to have a recording system. There's a bunch that are free out there. You StreamYard, Riverside, all those things. You want to create a podcast platform. You want to create social media handles. But really what it comes down to is you have to be able to speak. You have to be organized. Got to get your thoughts together. That's what's going to be important. And so I would recommend that you listen to a lot of people that you enjoy listening to that do a show by themselves. If you're going to have a co-host, that's different. People think that just sitting in front of a microphone and talking to yourself essentially for 30 plus minutes is easy. It takes practice. And it took me listening to the likes of Dan Patrick. And even he's in his later years is not as much as a solo show as it used to be with the Danettes. You look at Christopher Mad Dog Russo. Love watching him. That guy can carry 3 hours by himself and just him and his callers. So you got to listen. You got to learn. You got to listen back to your podcast. Don't just do a podcast and never listen to it. Listen back. What are the words that you're stumbling over? What are some of the issues that you're having? Do you have crutch words, sounds, buts? Well, maybe, I don't know. All those things happen. I had them. You got to work them out. Hit me up if you want some more advice. I'm not going to go too far down that road. Doc M, Southside Doc, welcome back. Haven't seen this guy in a while. He said, how does the team's overall talent compare to the previous couple seasons? Are the roster moves enough to push the needle? In some positions, I like the moves they've made. I think they're better at cornerback. I like where they are at safety. I think that, you look at Thornhill compared to KZ, that's an upgrade. You look at Slay over Jackson, Dante Jackson, upgrade. You talk about Brandon Eccles, I think. He's an upgrade over Beanie Bishop. They've made upgrades. You look at some of the inside linebacker moves, if Cole Holcomb can be healthy. But there are some places where they don't have as much talent on the offensive line, the defensive line, quarterback. I like what they've done at running back, wide receiver. It's fluid. We'll wait and see till what we see after the draft. That'll be a good place to ask that question again. Let's go to John. He asks, I'm all in on Mason Rudolph. Look, only 2 outcomes happen. We have a horrible season and are a better place to get a good quarterback, or we win 9 to 10 games and just sit where we are. Would you rather have a quarterback? Stats don't show much different in Russ and Aaron. I say Rudolph leads. So if I had to choose between Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, or Mason Rudolph as the QB1 in 2025, I would probably say just give me Mason Rudolph. I agree with your earlier assessment in the fact that, if they could suck and they could struggle. And yes, in 2026, it's going to put them in a better position. But at the same time, if he plays the way we think he could be capable of playing, they could potentially make the playoffs. And who knows? I don't think they would stick with Mason Rudolph as the answer, but still, good question. Let's go to Jackson. He says, thanks for your time, Jeff. Do you think with the Ikuale signing, the Steelers are still in the market to double dip at D-line? And does Ikuale move the needle at all as far as reducing the priority at defensive line? I don't think that signing takes them out of the market for potentially 2 defensive linemen at all. I also don't think that it moves the needle much in terms of reducing the priority at the position. Like I said in the first half, that to me is all about, it's about depth. It's going to be a battle of depth between Ikuale, Loudermilk, Lowry, Montravius Adams, all those guys. All right, let's go to RJ. How do you feel we stack up against the rest of the division now that we're a week into free agency and most of the big moves are out of the way for the other 3 teams, it seems like? I think we stack up about the same way we did in 2024. There's going to be, there's going to be some pluses. There's going to be some minuses. I still want to wait. I don't want to draw any drastic conclusions until we see what the NFL draft holds for the Steelers. All right, Maria. She said, do you believe Big Ben is the reason the Steelers are in their current quarterback situation? Franchise loyalty to their players and allowing players to retire on their own terms, like Troy, and Ben's refusal to retire caused Pittsburgh to overlook new and upcoming quarterbacks in past drafts, like Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson. I don't blame Ben Roethlisberger. It's Ben Roethlisberger could have been told the same thing that Hines Ward was told. We're going to release you or you can retire. They could have done that and they chose not to. So if you want to blame someone, don't blame Ben for wanting to play. Some of these players just don't know when to step away. Blame the front office, the coaching staff, the scouting department for not knowing when to jump on the Jalen Hurts or Lamar Jackson, even though they might not need a quarterback. I do think that they were kind of gun shy for doing that after the Mason Rudolph experiment in 2018. When they selected him in the 3rd round, Ben was pissed. He felt it was a giant waste, and I think they didn't want to upset the apple cart after that. So maybe can blame Ben in a way. Second question from Maria. Considering Arthur Smith's success with Ryan Tannehill, do you believe he can produce the same success with Rudolph? Do you see similarities? I do. I do see similarities. Mason Rudolph has a big arm, likes throwing the deep ball, and everything that I've learned about Arthur Smith's offense, especially the one that he had in Tennessee, he needed a big body receiver. He needs a good running game, and he needs a quarterback that's not scared to throw it over the middle. And when he plants his back foot, he throws it exactly where he's supposed to go with the ball. I think Mason Rudolph can do that. Now, can he do it enough to win a lot of games? We'll see, but I think he can do that. Let's go to James. Hey, Jeff, curious to know what your thoughts are regarding potential conversations between Mason and the Steelers. Do you think they were transparent, even blunt, stating that he would most likely back up a veteran like Rodgers? That is, if they get him, really hoping not. Now, I don't know about those conversations. I'm sure that when he signed with the Steelers, Mason Rudolph, that is, I would assume that they said, look, we're still going to try and get a veteran, but if we can't, you're the guy. And so Mason Rudolph probably hears that and says, at least I have a shot. If they don't get the veteran, I'm the guy. Whereas if he were to, you look at some of the other moves, Cooper Rush goes to Baltimore. Unless Lamar Jackson gets hurt, he's not playing. And so these situations dried up where you have a legitimate shot. He has a legitimate shot. I'm sure that's what enticed him to come back. Very team-friendly deal. I like it. RJ said, if we are projected to get 8 or 9 wins with Rudolph and 10 or 11 with Rodgers, unless Rodgers can win us a Super Bowl, wouldn't it be best to go with the cheaper option? Side note, I live in Montana. Maybe I'll get lucky and meet the legendary coach KT Smith. All right, you live in Montana. Coach KT Smith lives in New Jersey. I'm not sure where the connection is, but maybe you will meet him someday. We're going to have a big event in Pittsburgh for the 2026 draft. We're working out the kinks now. We're trying to figure it out. Coach Kevin Smith should be there. So maybe you make the trip to Pittsburgh. Maybe you go to the SCN FFSN meetup and you'll meet him in person. But to your question, the projected 8 to 9 wins. Remember, though, 8 to 9 wins is probably not getting you in the playoffs. 10 to 11 probably is. And so that's what's important to this franchise. It's not just about the number of wins. It's about getting into the playoffs and seeing what you can do. And you may disagree. I may disagree. We all may disagree. It's not our decision to make. That's why they're waiting on Rodgers. If he can get them 2 more wins, get them into the postseason, has the experience, isn't going to be, I don't want to say gun shy at the big moments. He's going to go for the jugular. Maybe that's what they want. Keep that in the back of your mind. Let's finish this up as we always do with some humor. Steeler fan 69 says, hello, my friend. Have you ever tried Jewish coffee? Israeli good. Funny. Next, what name did Lady Gaga give to her firstborn? Goo Goo Gaga. Love it. Last one here. My wife hates my obsession with Japanese food. Sushi left me. And say hello to your family. Can I get a DEFCON level for my dad jokes? Your DEFCON level, last week's were solid. I would say that they were, remember, if you're at a 5, that's phenomenal. Last week's were 5. This one, I'm going to give you a 3. I hate to say it, but this week's, you can do better. We all can do better. And I'm going to continue to do better here on Let's Ride. We're going to have another podcast for you this Friday with Jeremy Jerome Betts and the All Bets Are Off segment. Also, make sure you check out SteelCurtainNetwork.com. All of our articles there. It is completely free. Create a free account. Go to the top of the page. Create an account. Start commenting. Be a part of the community. You'll interact with me and all the other podcasters here. Please do so. We would love to have you there. But we finish these out. Be safe. Be kind, and God bless. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you on Friday. Go Steelers.